Thank you all for coming. You could have spent your Wednesday afternoon anywhere else, but we're just blessed that you would spend time with us. Delighted to be sitting here with you, Miss Sharon. You want to share a little bit about yourself? Give the people some insight.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be sitting with you and to have gotten a chance to speak with you multiple times leading up to this. I feel like I want to always be in touch with you. So that was a great gift of all of this. And I appreciate all of you. And of course, I want to shout out Windham-Campbell, Donald Windham and Sandy Campbell for having the vision and having the heart and the spirit and the inclination to support writers in meaningful ways with money. And then you rock, Michael. You rock. You rock, Mike. You rock. And everybody else that has anything to do with this festival, it has just been quite a joy, quite a treat, and such an honor to be amongst community in such meaningful, weaved ways. So all that to say thank you. It is my honor and privilege to be here. And what I would say by introduction is I sit here because I've been loved by many people, my family, and that's complicated because, you know, that's not always an easy, sweet thing. But my family loves me. I have had many mentors, artist mentors that have claimed me as family and that have nurtured me and pushed me and helped me to grow. And I always like to start by just saying a few names. I'm going to say my mother's name, Sonia Anjanette Bridgeforth Lewis. My father's name, Lanny Elijah Ross. I got to say my stepmama's name, Barbara Ross. I got so many parents. I'll just say one more, my stepfather, Joe Lewis. So I just want to say thank you. And if not for everyone's sacrifice and hard work and vision and determination, there would be no way for me to sit here. And because of them, I sit here, and because I'm sitting here, my daughter is smarter, she is better, she is wiser, and she is more like fierce than all of us. So that's how we do that.
There we go. There we go. So we titled this Oracles and Blessing, the Artist in Turbulent Times. Can you give folks who may not be familiar a little insight on oracles and blessing and kind of what that means to you?
Thank you. Yeah, it takes me a long time to develop work. So I'm a writer. I write for performance. And in the performance process, development process, and also in productions, I collaborate with actors, singers, dancers, designers, and audiences. So, you know, like in my world of growing up, everybody helps tell the story. So, you know, it's like everybody gonna try to get a little juke in, you know, a little song in, people talking at the same time, you know, lots of simultaneity, polyrhythmic telling, and spirit. And so in my heart, I think I'm always rooting myself in really trying to understand and also give gratitude towards and lift who I am and where I come from and where, especially for the sake of my daughter, we may go. So I tell African American migration stories, and in collaborations, those stories live as performance. And usually, well, not usually, always, the writing starts in my own bones. So, and I think this is partially because I didn't share my work until I was 30. So I started writing when I was 15. And I was really just writing kind of to just save my own life. I was really struggling as a young person who, I didn't have any language for this, but I was very genderqueer, and I knew I loved women, and I felt wrong in my body, and I just didn't have any language to understand any of that. And so I started writing, and it was a natural impulse because I was such an avid reader. And I read a lot because I grew up in South Central LA, but I got sent to Memphis a lot, and in Memphis, my great aunts were teachers, and so, you know, you was gonna read and you was going to learn how to write neatly, you do your letters, and education was very valued. And so I started writing at a young age, but I actually didn't share it until I was 30. And I think because I was left to my own imagination, I just played. And in my wild heart's desire with playing with language, I was constructing on the page a way to hold what I feel is the music that is Black language. And so, later I found my lineage of artists that were doing that already, and I learned more, and I, applied a lot of rigor and craft later. But initially, just playing with rhythm, playing with how really the dead is just present all the time. I remember my great auntie B always calling names, always, really she was telling me who I was and where I was from, but this recitation of names, this repetition of stories about back home, like all of this stuff. And so, but in my world of telling, there was lots of queers, bulldaggers, just all kinds of things that they wouldn't have told me. But by the time, and like I said, I had 6 parents thanks to divorces and marriages and stuff like that. And by around, I think it may have been 2014, 3 of the 6 passed. And I really wanted to celebrate them. And there was a way that I felt I was in a deeper conversation with them after they passed. And so it's not that the piece literally was about them, but I was in a real spirited conversation with them. And I was really also celebrating gender, my own gender, in a way that I hadn't before. And so, because by that time, people younger than me had put so much language out there. And I was like, I don't have to use this or that. I could use 500 other ways to talk about
it's
gender.
not one specific thing
or
what it may have been.
Yeah.
I wanted to, you said you do a lot of work in migration, and your folks moved to California, but you would get sent back to Memphis.
Yes.
Kind of like a reverse migration.
Yeah.
But I see that a lot. Folks will move out somewhere, or they'll move to like a Chicago, New York, Connecticut, but they'll send their children back down south.
Yes.
Those times going back down south, how did that feed into you and feed into your work? How was that a blessing to you?
Thank you. I love that question. The first time I went, I was 5 and I stayed until I was 7. And then after that, I went every summer, and that's where I stayed. I think that in part because my mother was a single parent, they were trying to give her a break. And when I went when I was 5, it was so that she could, she was, before I went, working in a factory where they pressed albums. And then she went to what they used to call key punch school. And so she became a key punch operator. And she went to school during that 2 years that I was away. And so I got to be with my great-grandparents, all of my great-aunts and uncles, all the cousins that were older than me. Like it is, like, who I am is because of them. And I just felt so loved and so nourished and so directed, So again, valuing reading. They started me in school early. So education, reading, writing, they really, you had to really have some manners. I still struggle with that one, but you had to have manners, and just, I knew I was loved, and I knew that people were looking after me. And so even when I would go back to LA, where it was different because she was a single parent, and we had a network of folks who were extended family, and a lot of them were single parents, but I was very much a latchkey kid at home, very much on my own and pretty wild. And so in the summers in Memphis, it was like there was a kind of freedom. And I just have so many distinct memories that are so important, that landed deeply inside of my soul because of those experiences.
That's a beautiful, strong core.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't get that core, so that within itself is a blessing to have that, to know that you are loved.
Yes.
With chosen family and extended family.
Yes.
So I went through, I read your work. I love it.
Thank you.
And so we have some of the blessing cards on the table. If folks want to grab them and look at them, that's kind of where we're going to go next. And on the table as well, there are index cards so that when we get to that point, we can make our own blessings and share out if we have time to do them. But in case if you want to take the time now to grab some so you kind of know what I'm referencing. So the first blessing cards, I also love your language. I love in your writing how you speak, because it's us in the writing. Like if
Thank
you know,
you.
you know. And I'm a person who loves language and specifically loves African American language. Some people will say black people don't have a language. That's not true.
Correct.
I can say and folks be like, okay, well that's what they said. Cool, you know. So dim blessings itself just drew me in from the beginning. But looking at blessing number 25, reading through, and I think we have enough time, Ms. Sharon, if you want to read it out loud.
Okay, I'll read it out loud. Number 25, remember, the river will save you. Her sweet flowing beauty will hold you. The river will wrap you in sweetness and teach you. With clinking bells and slivers of moon, she will soothe your roughened heart. The river will teach you tenderness. She will carry you to your mother. She will help you become yourself. The river will prove to you that you are loved unconditionally. The river will help you remember that you can fly.
So when I was reading, I took the river as being God, but I wanted to ask you, what's the river to you?
And I love that question. I think the river is a place, my initial encounters with the river were, of course, literal, as a literal body of water. And then being someone who writes from a blues heart, the river was very instrumental in the sharing of the blues, the development of the blues, and crossings. Later in life, I came to know the river as a force of nature that from my connections with Yoruba spiritual cosmologies, the river is named Oshun. The river as a force of nature flows to the ocean. I am an ocean person, and so I feel like this clear, like if you just look at nature, the clear, sweet, flowing, coursed water of the river goes straight into the salty ocean. Within the Yoruba cosmology, that would be my river, my wife, Omi, Oshun. And I feel like being in a place in my growth and development where I loved myself enough to actually receive love that was not unrequited, love that was not hurtful, love that was not stank.
Unconditional love.
Healthy, beautiful, unconditional love. There she is. And that helped me to really go to my literal mother, my mother, and be able to figure out how to be who I want to be with my own mother. So it's a lot of things swirling in that to me. And I feel like I meant all of those things. And yes, it is God.
I love that because when I was reading, you kind of confirmed everything just now, but the river seemed to be like that guide. That guide, no matter you needed a hug, the river was that. Information, it was that.
Yes.
That it would guide you, kind of like a North Star in a sense.
Yes.
What could be for some.
Yes.
But that's beautiful. And looking at blessing number 15, this one got me in a sense because this one really speaks to when it's hard, when it's turbulent. How does one be open when it's turbulent? When it's shaky, how do you fall back on those core values? How do you fall back on being open?
Yes.
Would you like to read it for the folks?
Yes, I'll read this one. Number 15, remember, Unearth the rumbling. Follow the singer's high note to the stars. Let yourself be opened. Turn the music on and dance, honey. Dance till you crumble and cry. Dance till you are turned inside out. Shake yourself whole, be drenched. Feel that. And I feel like my whole life, this is what my family did. They danced. So, Friday through Sunday. Shake it off, honey. Shake it off. Move it. Let it recourse.
That release.
Yeah.
And you have to move when things get shaky, when it gets turbulent. 'Cause I think it's safe to say we're all in somewhat of a turbulent time, depending climate, inflation, and regular things. I don't know if retrograde got any of you all, but I know things were spicy for me the past few weeks. But this seemed to be a mantra, like a physical one that could be had. Like while it's rumbling, while the earth is lumbering, still listen to the singer, listening to those things that you know that you can fall back onto, and don't let it get you. Literally dance it off.
Yeah.
Because as we know, energy, whatever you aren't dealing with will deal with you.
Yes.
And
That's
if you
right.
don't release it, you can dance, you can cry, you can write it, but it has to come out.
Yes.
And I think as we talk about being an artist or just a regular person, like, everyone isn't a creative, but the message is still the message, and it applies universally, no matter who you are and what you do. So I just feel like the blessing cards and even in this conversation are kind of tidbits of how to handle when it gets turbulent, how to handle when it gets hard so that you don't succumb. It's easy to close up, but it's hard to have your arms open, as you were saying, Miss Sharon, to receive that love, to receive that river.
Yes.
And I was looking at blessing number 11.
Yes.
Which kind of piggybacks off of number 15 for me, because first you asked us to be open. Now you want us to listen.
That's right.
Can you break down for us a little bit why it's so important to listen and be open and be vulnerable, even when it's difficult to do those things?
Yeah. And I do think listening, being vulnerable, being open, sometimes we have to also access help. Sometimes, that help may be a close friend, that help may be a therapist, that help may be dietary changes, that help may be books. But I do think sometimes for all of us, we need a place to lean into so that we can open and be vulnerable. For me as a writer, it's my biggest tool. And I actually, usually when I'm writing, I have a feeling, but I don't necessarily know what it is that wants to be said. So I use music to help the feeling bust my heart open. Aretha Franklin will do it every time. Aretha will do it every time. And then it's like the things that are in that closed, tight space, when it opens, I am able to not only articulate for the writing and for whatever the vision for the work is, but I'm able to make better decisions because I'm not being blindsided, like my choices are coming from a clearer place, as opposed to I'm having these feelings, I'm burying them down, and I'm reacting. It's like, oh, I'm really sad today. I might need to call somebody. I may need to cry. I might need to go to sleep. I might need somebody to check on me to make sure I get up. You know what I mean? I'm acting rash. I'm scared. So it's like, I think whether it's for artistic purposes or just in our daily life or both, I think it can help us make that work of being open, being vulnerable, and working to be clear can help us make more beautiful choices so that ultimately we can be who we want to be in the world. But I don't think we can do that alone.
No.
Yeah.
No. I think life gives you patches on your quilt.
Yes, you
think
better go ahead. Patches on the quilt. Yes.
And I think I'm very glad that you said that you have to essentially feel what you're feeling. Because if you make a rash decision in emotion, you can end up making a decision that's not really what you wanted to do. But you felt the fire, so you gave fire out.
Yeah.
How do you still continue to do that even when you just want to make a ball sometimes? As winter is approaching, like here it's going to get gray. It's going to get dark at like 4 o'clock. And I've been talking to some of my friends of like, okay, we've kind of become making like accountability groups, which are good. And, you know, there's journals everywhere and things to write. But is there something that you do in the morning outside of leaning into or just something in general? It's like, okay, I got to get it together and I got to get it going. Is there anything that specifically works for Miss Sharon?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, a lot of things. It's a rigorous practice for me. And it started with even like I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I used to, well, you know, but that wasn't good for me. I don't do that. I haven't done that in many, many, many years. So keeping a clear mind and spirit as much as you know, I'm able, releasing people that are toxic from my, you know, like not being in friendships or relationships where there's toxicity is really important. And then building relationships with people that I can trust, that I can call on, that are good and have my best interests in mind, and then leaning into that intentionally. And those people for me live all over the place, so it's not like they're all my neighbors, though I wish they were. But having my crew, you know, that I talk to on a regular basis. Some of them we're in WhatsApp threads. Some of them, you know, we're literally on the phone. Some of them I do get to see them periodically. And then thankfully, I have a wife who is part of that support for me. And then every morning, and this has changed over time a lot. I have practiced different kinds of things. But right now, I'm really into the Plum Village Zen nuns and monks and the practice of being mindful and breathing. So every morning I do get a vat of coffee. So coffee for me is part of this. It's not pretty before that. So I get my coffee and I sit very quietly in a corner. She doesn't talk to me until after the second cup. But it's a solitude. It's a ritual of solitude. So drinking the coffee, just breathing, looking around, listening to something inspirational. And then I have take certain vitamins, you know, like I have.
Intentional living.
Yeah, intentional, yeah. And then throughout the day, just, I also like aspire to offer a certain thing every day. So sometimes it's like I want to offer kindness today, you know. So whatever that is. So talking to myself about how I want to be and show up in the world. And then of course I fail drastically throughout the day, but I can breathe back into it and try it again.
You still got points on the board.
Thank you.
Still got
Need
points
all
on
them
the board.
points.
Very much
Yeah.
so. And I'm not probing you, but I'm asking you these specific questions because there's intergenerational folks in the room. And I know for me as a young woman, these are things that I need to know.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of us need to know because a lot of people in the world are dealing with a lot.
Yes.
And it's the physical, yes, but it's a lot when you're dealing with a lot up here and things out here as well.
Yes.
And trying to find that balance. So just hearing this from you and knowing that it's possible. You know, people think it may not be real to do these things every day, but it's a little bit every day, it sounds
Yes.
like. Putting your best foot forward makes a difference.
Yes.
It all may not go peaches and cream, but if you tried, then you sowed a seed.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
absolutely. And I do wake up earlier than I would because I prioritize that time. And so that's something that it's more important for me to do that and have that time, you know. Some people can do it on the end of the day. For me, the beginning of the day is better.
Fresh start in the beginning in the morning.
Yeah.
Is it during that 4 to 6 time?
No, I'm not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Because I feel like all of my elders have been telling me that 4 to 6.
That's a holy time.
It is.
I got to get a little more grown for that one,
Yeah,
though.
I'm trying to get there,
Yeah,
Miss Sharon, and I feel like God be waking me up about 5 o'clock, 4:30. I be like, Jesus, what's going on? You really
But
want
that's
me
a
up right
special
now?
time. That's a special
I be
time.
trying to stay up, Miss
Yeah,
Sharon.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
I do, but
Yeah.
sometimes they get me, and I got to come back and do part 2 again at
I'm
like
with you.
8.
I'm 7. 7 is my
I
time.
think I might start with 7.
Yeah, so
that's
that's
a
early to
complete
me.
number. 7 is a number of completion. So I'm gonna tell my homegirls we're gonna start with 7, y'all. Let's see what we can do with 7. There they go. And then I wanted our last blessing card is number 22. And if you can, Miss Sharon, can you read it for us? Because I don't even have a question. All I have is the last line I wanted to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Number 22, remember, you are loved. You have all that you need. You are not alone. You are enough. You deserve to be happy. And when you cannot find the evidence of the truth of this, remember to breathe.
It turned out to be, it was the last 3 lines. Because when you have to fall back on what you know when you can't see it, it's hard.
Yes.
Because now you're really relying on faith. Now you're really relying on your core, not necessarily what's before you. And not having that evidence is difficult, because like if I can't see it, well, can I believe it? But some things you can. So can you just expand with us a little bit on like what made you write this line, or just what would you like folks to get out of these last 3 lines of number 22?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that leads me right into offering some prompts for you all. My biggest life lesson, and being able to articulate this, changed my life. I wrote my way through this. I have about 3 pieces. It took me about 3 texts of writing and lots of research and collaboration, moving through various kinds of ways of exploring what my life issue was. But like I said, my work starts in my own bones. And at some point, so I'm gonna be real.
Come on.
Okay. So I stopped drinking in 1995. I started learning how to feel my feelings, and then I started noticing the ways that I was in my own way. And I started that was when I began to really let go of behaviors that were toxic, and then people that were toxic. It was a long process. And then in 2005, I got cancer. And when I got cancer, I remember when I was going under for surgery, I remember thinking, I just want to live. So all the stuff that I was angry about, all the little, and all the little frustrations I had, what I said to myself then is, I just want to live. And so when I came out from surgery, and it takes longer to recover than they tell you. When I got my energy back, I decided, so I asked myself, what does that mean? And for me, it meant that I wanted to, for me, it was very important to live a life that was, for myself, spiritual. The evidence of spirituality for me, I decided, was joy. So then, how am I going to be joyful if I'm holding so many grudges and resentments? How am I going to be joyful if I am still so toxic? So a question, I wasn't blaming myself for having cancer, but a metaphysical question was, how can I release anything that I'm holding that is toxic? And so it led me to this question of, what is my biggest life issue? The thing that if I could just let this go, everything would change for me in all directions of time, and therefore for my daughter and my mother. It's older than me. It's bigger than all of us in my lineage. And what I came to was, it is to know that I'm loved and I will have what I need. And so I've written several pieces, written my way through that. But what I want to offer you all is the question. So just write the question down if you'd like to. You will not have time to respond to it here, and it may not be appropriate to. But what is your biggest life issue? So mine was to know that I was loved and that I would have what I need. And the next question I asked myself was, when is my earliest memory of experiencing that life issue? And what is the story of that? So that's a question I offer you. When is your earliest memory of experiencing that life issue? And what is the story of that? And then the next question is, when is the time before that? Because it is older than what you think it is. So for me, and I wish I had the piece with me, I don't have it but with me, unfortunately, but for me, it was, I grew up raised by a single parent. Most of the family was somewhere else. My mother was terrified. And she says, to this day, we were like a breath away from being homeless all the time. And I'm gonna just be real. My mom was really cute. She had 3 boyfriends. One paid my Catholic school tuition. One was really smart, and he came and did educational stuff with me and drove us around. And one I only met once. He was real fine. I remember him. But anyway, but my mother also worked really hard. She worked really hard, and we had a network of extended family. But I think that her fear was, as you know, children are very sensitive, and also was around me. You know, there was evidence of it. And so what I thought it was, you know, that I wasn't loved, like my mother isn't the most tender person, and I was all queer and all this stuff, and that we wouldn't have what we needed. When I went to that second question, the second memory, like going further back, I realized I was mad at God. I thought God wasn't taking care of us. That's what it was. And so I wrote this piece called Delta Dandy, where I really just went in. I wrote a piece before that called Conflama, where I more looked at like my mom and me and our family history and stuff. But with this piece, Delta Dandy, I went deeper in, going in from this deeper examination of this question. And I do a lot of research for all of my pieces. Ultimately, they're not even about me, so it's not that it stayed there. It became what it wanted to become, but those questions were golden. Those questions really helped me. So I offer you these questions with all my heart. And then I also invite you to take those, like once you walk with them and maybe journal about them and sit in the sun with them while the sun is still available, and work with them, take the thing that is your biggest life issue and flip it. So what's the beautiful mantra? So this one would be mine. You are loved, you have all that you need, you are not alone, you are enough, you deserve to be happy. And when you cannot find the evidence of the truth of this, remember to breathe. And before we go on, I just want to, because to me this is connected, I want to read this other one. Yeah. This wasn't, yeah. So one of my mentors, our mentors, Lori Carlos, passed. It's been some years now. It's been quite a number of years. But she was the original Woman in Blue and the original For Colored Girls, and she's done so many things. And she's got thousands of art children all over the world. We are lucky to say that we are 2 of them. And Lori literally was a genius, literally. And anything that I do as an artist is because she looked at me and claimed me and kind of took me under, and then I'd drive her around and she'd tell me about life and art, and I got to sit next to her when she directed shows, and she made things happen for me. She did this for all of us, but She was very, very, very powerful and very important. And she changed the world through her work and through the legacy that she left behind. And by the time she got sick, she didn't have very much. And it was complicated. And so, and a theater company that she and I were both, and I still am very close to, called Pillsbury House Theater Company in Minneapolis, invited me to write something for Lori. And so I sent you that thing. So I wrote a long piece, but this blessing I wrote for Lori. Remember, gather yourself, your broken bits, your shards, your shattered dreams. Let your tears be your guide. Collect your precious memories, your hopes and intentions. Gather yourself. Bring what you are holding. Toss it all to the wind. Run as fast as you can towards the sun and fly. So I wanted to just bless her release. Bless her move into the light. Bless her beingness with God. Bless her release and shedding of everything that held her down and that harmed her. Just bless her. And so you might do that for somebody. Who do you want to bless? So maybe that's another question. Who do you want to bless? Because that helps us. When we're alone, when we feel like we can't do something, if we're thinking and in connection with people, like where it's bigger than us and not about us, who do we fall into? You know, who's falling into us? You know? So who do you want to bless? Write them a blessing. You don't even have to share it with them. It's for you.
Y'all feel that? So with that, I invite you to write for a few moments to reflect. I don't know. I feel like I need to write a little bit. But if we could take this time to write out a blessing that comes to you or something that's on your mind, on your index card that Michael was so gracious enough to drop off for us and provide. And if we have about 12 minutes left, so maybe we do that for about 5. And if anyone's heart and spirit is moved to share what you wrote, you may. And if not, we'll make it shake from there. Okay. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to give to the group before we say our well wishes to each other? And only if you feel compelled. Don't feel rushed. This ain't one of them classes.
Okay.
Let the sound waves you need to reach your ears.
Wow.
There is always enough time to be kind.
Oh.
Kindness has no deadline. Be kind to yourself.
Oh. Thank you.
Also, you know, and in the spirit of blessed with our togetherness in real time, remember, in the beginning was the Word, not technology, not Zoom, the Word.
Thank you.
Woo!
Yeah.
There's something going on in here.
Yes. Yes.
Well, with all that being said, Miss Sharon, I want to say thank you. Thank you for bestowing your wisdom upon us, chopping it up with me, and just giving us real tools and things to reflect on, things to move forward with. You sowed a seed with us in this room that we can now plant. And we hope that we're able to show you the harvest when it's time.
Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative. I feel so full and I feel blessed. Thank you. And thank you for your grace and your kindness and for your deep study and for opening and holding the space so well. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Be safe. We're here.